It bubbles all the small particles to the top, and a skimmer comes along and pulls them off. At the very end of the train, the water then goes through a sand filter or a composite filter. Could be, we're not quite sure what the total filter material is going to be, and it filters out anything that's left, like small organisms that can't come out the other way.
If somebody goes along Route 35, they pass by the Amawak Reservoir and the filtration plant there. What is the relationship between the Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks filtration plant and the Amawak plant? We may have touched on this a little earlier, but let's go back to it, because if, God forbid, something happens to that plant, what's your fallback?
All right, well, right now we've got the Amawak plant, and it's run by the County of Westchester. The Joint Waterworks has petitioned the County of Westchester to purchase that plant to make it part of the Joint Waterworks.
Okay, now, in the event that something happens, that is something that obviously would be used again?
It still would continue to be used in conjunction with.
Amawak is part of the whole scheme. It's going to always be there. It's going to be used all the time.
Mrs. Cooper, you had mentioned that the county had gone into a new emergency mandatory restriction plan. I find it interesting. There's been very little written about this. We have not seen anything out of the county. We get 100,000 press releases a day, but nothing about this. So how are people supposed to know, other than you're coming here and telling us?
I don't know that they didn't go into a declaration of a severe drought emergency. What they did was the County Board of Legislators at I believe it was last Monday's meeting, passed a local law amending Chapter 693 of the laws of Westchester County regarding the use of water during a drought. So what they did was they enacted the measures that people need to take to deal with water conservation. Within the law, they have a section for a declaration of a severe drought emergency that the county executive can declare. They have not declared a severe drought emergency. What they have is created a law that allows them to do that, and that puts in other water conservation measures that are really very similar to the ones the town of Yorktown has as permanent conservation measures.
By the way, what happens if people don't obey the emergency mandatory water conservation laws in the town of Yorktown?
In the town of Yorktown, what we do first is we issue a warning, and after, if we go back for repeated times because we're running out of water and people are not adhering to the law, you'll end up in court.
Okay, now, how are you going to get people to go along with this? I mean, you say drought emergency or emergency water conservation measures. Everybody's going to raise their hand and say, hey, we had, 70-odd inches of snow. We were deluged by rain. It's been raining practically every other day for the last 6 months. They're building their arks already. I mean, how are you going to get people to really believe that there is a problem?
Mike, we're depending on you.
Get the word out.
Put it on the shoulder.
We're here. We're talking about it. We're lucky that the 6th graders at the Mildred Strang Middle School are working with us to help develop a water conservation program. They're going to be helping us with public service announcements. They developed a flyer. We've got a poster contest that they have done. We are going to we are going to send the flyer out through the schools. We're on the radio, we're in the newspaper, and we are trying to spread it out through word of mouth. We need people to understand this is not because of the a shortage of water. This is because of the quality of the water.
All right, I'm holding up a report. You cannot see what it says on the cover here. New York City Water Board, and I'm going to report, the second line is, report on the cost of supplying water to, quote, upstate customers, like we're in the middle of Yemensville and Eckvelt, if you know what I mean, for the 1997 rate year. How much are they raising it, and what's the impact going to be?
They're raising it a lot, and we don't like it.
Approximately $53 a million gallons.
And if you are using how many gallons a day? I mean,
on the average, you could use for the year 5 million a day.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is a sizable chunk of money. Right. Mrs. Cooper, I wonder if you could
understand that when we have our water district and when we set our water rates and bill our customers for within our own public water supply, we're buying water from the city of New York, and we're very, very dependent on the city of New York for that water. And we're also very susceptible to whatever the rate changes are that they propose.
All right. As an end user, do we have any say as to what the city can charge? I know there was a great deal of controversy over the rates that were going up. I think you were quoted as saying, how can they do this? I mean, we're the people who use it. We've got the watershed here in certain places. They are dependent on us for zoning and things like that, and yet we're the ones ending up paying the bill. Is there anything you can do to get them to perhaps lower it? Are you buying retail or wholesale here? I guess is the question.
We're buying wholesale. In 1992, we were paying $73.84, I think it was, for 1 million gallons of raw water. It's been going up every year, and this year they're proposing to bring it up to $227.95. That means our cost for raw water has gone up about $270,000 per year since 1992.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
These costs have not been passed along to our customers yet, but if the city keeps increasing it, eventually we do have to pass it along to our customers.
And Mrs. Cooper, who's paying the bill then?
Town is paying the bill. The water district's paying the bill out of accrued costs that savings that we've had. What we end up doing on this is generally the County of Westchester and the Westchester Water Agency represents.
Oh, beautiful.
We have a quail on a bed of fennel.
Oh, that looks yummy.
Here's your duck leg confit on a bed of Savoy cabbage.
Oh.
And my name is Adam. If there's something else I can help you with, please.
Oh, this is wonderful.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so beautifully served.
Really. I love the design of the sauce on the plate and everything. That's
Yeah,
fabulous.
and what about the setting there?
Yes.
It's artistic, isn't it?
Really artistic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mary Michelle, it's a delight to have you here.
Oh.
You know, we've had these luncheons at the Hoppfields, and we had Morton Dean, who is, of course, a famous television star.
Exactly.
And we've had our dear friend Paul Bucher, who's a Congressional Medal of Honor winner. That's really another direction. And then we've had Terry Ellsbury, who's, as you know, the Reverend at St. Matthew's Church. And now we've got this beautiful lady here.
Oh, well,
And what a pleasure.
3 guys and a lady.
And this great setting with such wonderful food.
Yeah.
I don't know where to begin except to say our guest today is Mary Michelle Rutherford.
Oh.
And Mary Michelle, your background is so fascinating and so different in so many ways because as a child you were a television star, were you not?
Well, not exactly television. I did do modeling with my mother when I was very young. Actually, there was a story of me and Arthur Godfrey. We were supposed to go on the Arthur Godfrey show. And Arthur Godfrey wanted to cut my hair off. And I seriously loved my hair. I had very long, beautiful hair. And I guess there was a little bit of a altercation between my mother and Arthur Godfrey and the whole...
And who won?
Well, I didn't do the show, but I think I kept my hair.
But you've been you were a model when you were very young, were you not?
Yes.
And then as the years went on, you were on the cover of some magazines, as I remember.
Yes.
What was the cover?
I was on Elle, on the
Elle
cover of Elle. I
magazine,
was on the
yes.
cover of Ingenue and a couple of Brides magazines. And I worked in Europe. I worked for French Vogue and Italian Vogue and Elle and Marie Claire and lots of magazines all throughout
And
Europe.
I gather from what I've seen of your pictures that are on the screen at the moment, they were all kinds of pictures that you were, all kinds of costumes that you were modeling for, all kinds of moods that you were modeling for. So, I'm sorry.
The nature of modeling in the 70s, I think, was people were really trying all kinds of unusual, different kinds of photography. And a lot of the people that I worked with were really artists and took the kind of work that they did quite seriously, as well as the designers who were very, very talented. It's not unlike here. You know, there's great style and an appreciation of beauty with the beautiful flowers and the food. And I think the senses, you know, the nature of the 5 senses. And I don't know, I think photography is something that really can inspire you, and that's hopefully what they do some of the time, as well as sell the product, which is, of course, part of the package.
But you're talking about modeling for stills as such, photographs as such, but didn't you also do some commercials, as I
Yes,
understand?
I did. I did commercials both here in this country and abroad. I worked on over 40 movies in this country and also abroad. Never terribly big parts, but I did work. I was on Broadway. the
You
commercial.
were on Broadway, too? What
yes.
did you do on Broadway?
I was in a play called Wings. It was a rather serious play.
Didn't Howard Hawks do a picture called Wings at one point? I think so. But was
Yes.
it taken from the play, or was it
No, this was
an
an
original?
entirely different
What was
subject.
Wings about?
It was about a stroke patient.
Oh.
So it was, quite a different. I think the one you're thinking
It
of
was
is
a
about
war
the
film.
war film,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah. But this was interesting because, it's very dear to my heart in the study of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to understand how someone's mind works, and a stroke patient is someone that learns how to work with the other side of their brain. Usually what happens is one side gets destroyed, so they have to relearn how to think, how to speak, how to walk, and it's quite fascinating emotionally how they cope with it, psychologically.
Did you enjoy Broadway?
Very much.
You did?
Very much, yeah.
More than motion pictures?
Well, the theater's different, The theater's,
Really?
yeah, it's like live TV. It's fun. You get to do things off the cuff.
Did any of these plays or musicals, I guess in some cases you were in musicals too?
No, I wasn't
just
ever.
plays.
No, no, no.
Just plays. Did they have long runs?
Some did,
Yeah.
not varying degrees, not a tremendous amount. I didn't do an awful lot of theater. I would have liked to have done more, but I sort of started late because I spent so many years as a model. So that kind of,
Now, when you talk about modeling, did you model in a great many countries?
yes. I was based in Paris for quite a long time. I spent 4 years in Paris. First, I went to school in Paris. I was at the Sorbonne. I studied the Cours de Civilisation Française.
Oh, then tell me about the food that we got here, please.
Well,
Please, tell me about it.
Well, it's been a long time ago, but I think that
Can I
food is...
taste some of it? And you
Oh,
tell me what
yes,
I'm
that's
tasting?
a good idea, yeah.
Tell me what kind of food we have,
Well-
Sorbonne style.
Well, the Sorbonne was really more about literature, but I did study cooking with Mappy, the Comtesse Toulouse-Lautrec.
The
So
Comtesse Toulouse-Lautrec, any relation?
she's related.
To the painter?
Her husband was related to the painter.
Uh-huh.
But she understood quite a bit about cooking, and I think that food that you're eating there has a little bit of a Spanish flavor to it with the beans and the, is it
It
peppers?
also looks like a Toulouse-Lautrec painting.
It does look like a
It really
Toulouse-Lautrec
does.
painting, yeah. Fabulous.
And you having, what are you having?
I'm having the quail, and I see there some wonderful lentils in here, and there's some cabbage. Cabbage is, one of the great nutritious foods of the world. Let me taste it.
By Sorbonne's standards, it's one of the best, isn't it? Good.
It's delicious, yeah. Yeah, well, the French eat a lot of cabbage. It's very much a staple
Oh,
of their
really?
diet.
Yeah.
And beans, of course.
But the restaurant is, as you know, what contemporary American is.
Contemporary American,
I mean,
yeah.
Hoppfield
Right.
really concentrates on a
Concentrates.
wide variety of food. This is delicious. And it's not only delicious, but it's so beautifully served, isn't it?
Really fabulous.
So there was a Sorbonne, right?
Right.
Now, was modeling most of your career in France, for example?
Well, what happened in those days was that you were based in one country and then you would go and work in other countries. So you would travel. You would go from Paris and you would go to Milan, or you would go to England, or you would go to, I did trips to Beirut, to Moscow, to Poland, the Far East.
These were for magazines?
Magazines, fashion shows, and some commercials as well. I mean, there were always commercials attached. They would try to combine with the big trips.
Well, now, I know you did one commercial that's a rather important commercial in your career.
Yes.
And I'd like, if I may, to show to our audience what you did for FritoLay.
Okay.
May I have one?
Frogs eat Lay's potato chips?
I'm not really a frog. If I can eat just one Lay's potato chip, I'll turn back into a handsome prince. See?
Remember, just one.
He tried, but he couldn't do it. He tried, but he couldn't do it. No one can eat just one. He loves those Lay's potato chips, thin, crisp, and oh so alive. Lay's potato chips, no one can eat just one.
Now, that was FritoLay.
Right.
And, of course, as I understand it, that ran for several years, didn't
Yes,
it?
it
You
did.
were
It was
telling
very
me that.
successful. It won an award at Cannes.
It did?
Yeah, for best international.
Did you accept the award?
No, I had nothing to
They
do with
needed
it.
to send you to Cannes. Oh, what a shame.
Right.
Now, at the same time, you were doing all kinds of other commercials. I mean, the FritoLay is good old potato chips.
Right.
But you also did some fancy commercial, as I understand. What was the name of the company?
It's a French mascara company. It's called Rutherford. Anyway, it's kind of a cute commercial, but there was this, well, anyway, we'll have a look at it, right?
Oh, I think we've got to take a look at this one just by contrast, if
Right,
nothing
exactly.
else.
Bientôt minuit sans rayon. Rice il soit, on peut renoncer à la fortune, pas à la beauté.
Gee, aren't Frenchmen terrific?
Yeah, why can't guys back home dress like that?
So slim, so rich. Oh, he's coming over.
It's easy to be mistaken for a Frenchman in a brigade shirt from Arrow. Slim, trim, very European.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. Parlez-vous American?
He's American.
You really think so?
Brigade from Arrow.
Well, Michelle, that's your commercial career. Did you do any commercials beyond that? Was this at an early stage in your life, these commercials? Obviously they were, weren't they not? It looks that way to me.
It was a while ago,
It
yes.
was a while ago, you know, but without counting the years.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do many commercials after that, did you? It was mostly magazine work, was it not?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I did both. And
Did you do some commercials?
no,
Maybe
no.
little bits.
Yes,
Yeah.
little bits, yeah.
Weren't you intrigued by the power of television as opposed to the power of the magazine? Didn't you see that coming in a way? And you were on Broadway.
Right, and I've always loved television. I mean, I grew up on television. I think that television is a wonderful medium, and I would certainly like to do more with television, particularly...
I think you're a natural for television, forgive me. Not only because of your looks, if you'll forgive me, by emphasizing looks, it seems to be important in television, but in your career, which was tuned to show business in so many directions, at the same time, you've had a very serious part of your life, have you not?
Quite. I think so,
I mean, your interests are not alone at the show business level, but they're rather serious as well. And we're going to get to that later in the program. But for now, just let me say one final thing. What is your ambition at the moment?
Well, I think my ambition is I enjoy making things beautiful, as this restaurant does. It's so wonderful.
And enjoying such good food.
And enjoying the good food and so
Yeah.
on. But I really think that it's important to take the nature of beauty and to have fun with it, but to also talk about it in a philosophical way. So I'm sort of interested in educational television that has to do with, you know, telling ancient stories. Conversely, I'm also interested in the future, in scientific or sci-fi programming. You know, I like, because I believe it's the same mythology. It's telling of a story. And I think more than anything, I think stories are what keeps us going. As you so often say, the play's the thing.
Play's the thing. Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. So I think that people need to hear about stories, but for me it's interesting to do it by working within the nature of existing tales, the ancient Greek mythology or Roman or Aztec or Persian. All of the great civilizations have had stories. And also to, you know, talk a little bit about the future, as George Lucas has done with Star Wars or that kind of thing, using futuristic ideas. I think cartoons do that.
But in terms of television, it seems to me that, if you'll forgive me, I find that you're a communicator.
Right.
And you really want to be in touch with your audience. And your audience consists and includes, of course, the area. The food in the area. Hoppfield is such a wonderful country restaurant. You have friends here in the country. So you're really a neighborly type, are you not?
Definitely.
And that applies to television.
Mm-hmm.
To me, person to person and neighbor to neighbor is a good part of television.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your background in terms of your lifestyle. Forget
Yes.
about the modeling and the commercials,
Exactly,
etc.
yeah.
So there's lots to talk about in terms of you as and your interests. But at the moment, I think we ought to get to the food. Do you not?
Definitely.
I'm waiting for it. The food is
No,
waiting for us, and I'm waiting for the food.
It's hard to talk and eat at the
so
same
let's just
time.
take a brief
Yeah,
moment
okay.
at this point, okay?
Great.
We'll be back.
Okay.
Right.
Bedford.
Mary Michelle, you know, I look at this food, and I look at the setting here, and I'm so pleased with myself. It seems such a beautiful day, you know, and with such a beautiful lady, and with such great food. I'm born under the sign of Gemini, you've reminded me on occasion. Is it a good day for me because I'm Gemini, or what is it about? What goes on here? Can I blame anybody for this?
Well, the nature of Gemini
I know I can
is
blame Hoppfield because they're wonderful.
they like to ask 3 questions at once. We got to bring this down to 1.
Well, now let me
Okay.
say this at the start, because for those who don't know you that well, you're very serious about astrology. And if I may say so, you're remarkable in terms of the deep interest you have. It's not the kind of thing that you read in, if you'll forgive me, in some of the papers where, today is a good day to be kind to your mother, sort of advice. You're very serious about it. You're taking into consideration all the factors that are involved. And with very few exceptions, I must say that I find you remarkable. But you've studied astrology for a long time, have you not?
I have, and I think I've also studied human nature, though. I think in my travels, in my education, having been exposed to so many different kinds of people at a very early age.
All over the world.
All over the world, different civilizations, different languages, different ways of eating and dressing and drinking and everything. I think astrology just ended up being a language that I used to summarize.
A language?
A language.
I don't quite understand that.
Well, it's a language of symbols and imagery.
You mean it's means of communication?
It's a means of communication.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can talk about a flower and the color of the flower, and you can relate it to a particular sign or a particular planet or a particular image. The flower can represent it's symbolic. Lots of times in the Hindu and the Buddhist tradition, the flower is what one meditates on, and the unraveling of the flower. And in all of these old traditions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Aztecs, every great civilization has in its studies also studied the stars. And it's amazing
Did
how...
the medicine man also relate to the stars?
Yes, of
course.
Did he? Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, all the shamans
I see. So
understood and would plant certain herbs and cultivate certain medicines and so on according to certain planetary formations. They didn't all use the same language. They would have different words that would correspond to the different constellations.
Well, give me some examples, if you will, of how does it usually begin? What's the first sign?
The first sign is the sign of Aries.
And that's what birthdays is it?
It's in the spring. It's the first day of spring. It's usually March 21st or something like that to April 21st. It changes every year.
Are there general characteristics for Aries?
Yes, there are general characteristics. And I think the first thing that I have to say about it is that it's ruled by the sign of Mars. Mars was the god of war. Yeah. So the nature of Aries is that it's very masculine. It's about initiating new projects. It's a fire sign, so there's this great surge of creativity and energy and people that like to not necessarily pick up the pieces, but like to get other people going. Wow. The next sign is the sign of Taurus, which is ruled by Mars's counterpart, Venus.
And what dates those is Taurus?
That's May, no, where am I? April 21st to May 21st.
Yes.
And Taurus is it's a very sensuous sign. It deals with the 5 senses. So all of what we're doing here today relates to the sign of Taurus.
You mean that Taurus would appreciate Hoppfield's food more than most?
More than most.
But not more than you and I.
Not more than you and me.
But well, more than most.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. But it's also ruled by this, I have to mention Venus, because Venus is what brings all the beauty to it. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty.
To Taurus?
Yes, she rules.
She rules it, just as Mars rules Aries. Good.
And the
now
next
you're
sign,
coming to my favorite sign.
Gemini.
Right.
You have a memory for this.
Yeah.
Gemini.
May 20th to June what?
June 20th, more or less, June 21st. Yeah. It's ruled by Mercury, so that's the sign of the communicator. Mercury was the messenger of the gods.
I didn't know
he would take...
Good for Mercury.
When Jupiter wanted to talk to Pluto, Mercury was the one that took the messages back and forth. But he was also the trickster, and he could also do 6 things at once. He was able to do a lot of juggle a lot of balls in the air, which,
President Kennedy was Gemini,
Right, exactly.
Bob Hope, Gemini. Some other important people we may not mention. VIPs.
Right, exactly.
Okay, next.
The next sign is Cancer, which again relates to food. Cancer is the sign of the home and the hearth. It's ruled by the moon. And the mother, it's the mother figure. And really the first thing that we learn how to do in life is how to eat, how to take care of our natural functions. And anything to do with Cancer is someone that understands intrinsically, may not be able to communicate it terribly well, but is someone that understands how to nurture someone else.
They would appreciate good food.
They would definitely
appreciate.
Exactly,
Right. Okay,
right.
good. You see, I have one theme in mind.
Right, exactly. Well, you know, it relates. It
I know
strongly
it
relates.
absolutely.
Okay, so the next
I'm
sign.
a communicator. let's face it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next sign also relates in the sense that it's the sign of Leo. July 21st, August 20th. Leo is the sign of parties, and I noticed they have a private room upstairs for private parties and so on. So, but Leo might not want the party to be upstairs. He might want it to be downstairs. So that everybody can see him, be in charge and so on.
So is Leo the lion in a way?
Leo the lion. It's ruled by the sun.
By the sun.
So it's fire, and it's very, it's a tremendous amount of energy, and usually people that like to have fun and like to spend time with children.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the sign of lovers.
Oh.
The next
a
sign,
lot of people want to think they
well, exactly.
go into that sign. All right, let's go.
The next sign is Virgo.
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 That's supposed to be a very nice sign.
Well, you know,
No?
they're all nice.
They're all nice.
Everybody's.
Yeah, you're saying all the nice things anyway. Yeah.
Virgo is the constellation of Virgo is one of the more important ones, and the story is that Virgo dealt with the idea of perfection when she walked the earth to such a degree that she sort of threw her hands up, and the gods placed her permanently in the heavens in one of the most beautiful and brightest of the constellations.
And how does that reflect on the character of the person?
Well, Virgos, there is this need to be perfect.
I see.
There is this need to be very involved and be over anxious and caring, but also is
sensitive too.
About communication.
Oh,
also ruled by Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
The next sign is Libra. The image of Libra is the scales. September 22nd through October.
October, right.
And Libra is also ruled by Venus. It's a sign of communicating because it's an air sign. So it's a little more. When Librans talk, usually it's about diplomacy. They know how to get along with people and make things nice. They will smooth over the rough edges. The next sign is Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. Mm-hmm. So we're going the other way. First, Libra was Venus and Scorpio is Mars. So the way that one thinks of Scorpio...
Now, Scorpio would be October 21st to November 21st.
November 21st.
Approximately. Yeah.
Approximately. And Scorpio is the sign of rejuvenation. It's the sign of the fact that every day we have to go to sleep so that we can wake up the next morning. It's the sign of death and rebirth.
How does that apply to character?
Intensity. Someone that is involved and very interested in what makes people tick. Mm-hmm. Scorpio wants to know, wants to get to the heart of the problem. And sometimes
they make pretty good psychiatrists.
Very good psychiatrists. Yeah. Or detectives.
Or detectives, okay.
The next sign is Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter. It's a fire sign.
November 21st to December 21st.
Right. Jupiter was the king of the gods. Sagittarians are quite wise. Mm-hmm. The nature of them is that they like to know about a lot of different things.
They're not wise enough to avoid birthday gifts. Anybody born around that time, you have a real problem.
Well, this is true.
Yeah, but anyway, go ahead.
This is true. Well, they get presents all year round, probably. They set it up that way.
From the wisdom.
Exactly, from the wisdom. It also is the sign that rules doctors, lawyers, priests, higher learning. So Sagittarius is important for the nature of philosophy and the things that I love to talk about.
And now come the fellows who are really crazy. These get no gifts at all and then do nothing but parties, birthday parties. This is December 21st to January 21st.
Capricorn, yes.
Capricorn.
This is the winter solstice. Yes, it's a tough time to be, I think. But they love the difficulty of things. Capricorn, they end up becoming the leaders of society. They become the ones that take charge after having worked so long and so hard at trying to overcome all the obstacles. It's an earth sign, and it's ruled by Saturn. The next sign is Aquarius. The movie Hair, they talk about the age of Aquarius in the song.
And by the way, it's the time when the presidents birthdays are celebrated, you know, the Washington
Well,
and Lincoln.
the principles of this country are based on Aquarian principles, which are freedom, humanitarianism, and a certain kind of social or socialistic principles. You know, not social politics, but social caring, not about anarchy or one leader, but democratic principles. Those are all having to do with Aquarius and the planet Uranus, which was discovered about the time that this country was created in the 1770s. It's an air sign ruled by ancient ruler Saturn, new ruler Uranus. And the final sign is Pisces. Pisces is considered the
That
dreamers.
would be, what, February 21st to March 31st?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're considered the old souls. There's a tremendous amount of compassion. It's ruled by the planet Neptune. I don't know what else to say. They're people that understand. They take a lot of the needs and carings of other people on their backs, and